The biggest thing you gave me was time.
I've always been a proponent of do the job, do it well.
When you're a family, everyone in the family has to be treated with respect.
I couldn't have done this without you. Coming here to K-State, you've been my confidant and in the room with me.
I want to know who you really are, right? You can put whatever you want on paper, but that doesn't really matter.
His teachers, they meet the learner wherever he is.
They don't care what you know.
They know how much you care.
Be aggressive. Let's win. Here we go.
We'll jump right in and really give you the floor because you don't need the introduction. But as I go, man, I just like for you to take us through your journey, that journey that now has you exactly where you are today.
Yeah. I appreciate you having me on, Van. I've always been a fan. And as I said, you and I had the chance to grace the stage together not a little over a year ago. So yeah, I'm thankful for that. It's been really interesting for me. I don't believe in luck. I certainly believe in blessings. And to think about where I've been the last 3 months is certainly a testament to that. Going from, Ball State to the University of Washington in the fashion that I did, and only being there about 10 weeks, I'm really grateful for Troy Dannon, our director of athletics here at Nebraska, University of Nebraska, just because, he had enough faith in me to bring me along with him. And we had never worked together before, but we had been friends for a while. We've kept in touch over the last 7 years. And so the time at Washington, I clearly gained his trust, and we were aligned in a lot of areas of at that time, what athletics was going to look like for Washington. But as we both know, our landscape is changing here in the last week, and over the next 10 years, who knows what that looks like. And so he brings me to Nebraska with him. Again, it's been a blessing, and this is a great place. People will tell you there's no place like Nebraska. The people here are special, but I certainly enjoyed my time in Seattle and still will keep in contact with a lot of those folks. I'm a relationship guy. I believe in having the opportunity to really connect intentionally with people and building something, whether that's a friendship, being associates, or just having a chance to be really good colleagues and collaborate together. So I've been fortunate, and this is, again, a great opportunity here where I sit in Lincoln, and I'm really excited about it. I've been here about a month now, and a lot has happened in that time. But in my role as Chief Operating Officer, I have the opportunity to touch everything from relationships with coaches and, as well as our staff, just the day-to-day. My job is to basically keep things off Troy's desk and to help him with the strategy for the department as we move forward, again, in this new landscape.
Well, man, just like you said, is a great experience for us to be able to be on that stage together. And what you just mentioned in terms of being intentional about developing relationships, I see that in you, and I'm just, man, grateful and in my words, blessed to be a friend of yours. What I'd like to talk about now is something that here at Kansas State, and I'm sure across the country, it's a big deal. And I was talking to one of our signees who they just kind of came in today, and we were talking about core values. Well, Coach, what to talk to me about those? And I said, man, your family, right? Your dad taught you one thing that the rich family is going to do. Right. He said, this is when you see us, this is what you see. Right. This is right. What we aspire to exhibit as we walk the earth. And I said, there's some things that he's told you. And those are your values. Right. And as you continue to grow, you got to have some that belong to you. Right now, they belong to your family. They belong to your where you're from. But you're going to have to pass some of those on to your kids. And so here at Kansas State, as I talk to him here at Kansas State, man, we talk about discipline, we talk about commitment, we talk about
Yep.
toughness, and more importantly, we talk about being selfless. And so
That's a
those
good one.
are the big core values, and there's a lot of, but those are the ones that we lock on to here at Kansas State. So my question to you is what are your core values, and how do they go into making you the leader that you've become over these years?
Yeah, that's a great question. And kudos to you all at Kansas State, you and the staff, the department, because it's our jobs to impact lives for them to go out and obviously to be better and the stars, a generation of student athletes that are going to go out and change the world. And I think it's so important for us to teach so many things outside academics and athletics, which you guys are clearly doing. So kudos to you and the folks over at Kansas State. So there are a few things that I want to say, but I must say I am certainly a man of faith. And that's the first thing I want to mention within my home, which is the most important leadership role I will ever have. And for my 5 and 7-year-old, if I want them to model what a man should be, then it's my job daily to continue to shape them in that form. So I am certainly spirit led, but I will say that leadership is extremely important to me when I think about my values and the things that I stand for. I think about, integrity. I think it's so important to be a man of character and being someone that folks will be able to count on. I'm blessed. I've made a lot of connections and connected with people over the years. Um, and the one thing that we've all made mistakes in our lives, but that just can't be compromised. I think again, being a husband, being a father, being in the position that you and I are in, integrity is extremely important for me. I would also say, perseverance. I'm in a lot of ways. I find myself, and I'll use this football analogy, which I think you can appreciate when I think about my core values and what I stand for. I've been in this industry for 20 years, and the last, I would say, 3 have been, I've been catapulted in a way to be in positions that I don't know that we always have the opportunity. You and I, as men of color, have the chance to be in, and I find myself in this situation, Van, where I'm the guy that didn't get invited to the combine, but
Yeah.
then somebody just said, you know what? They took a look at my film and
Yeah.
they thought, well, we better look at this guy. This guy he might be somebody that we need to pay attention to. And then I get an opportunity and it goes well and I get another one. And before you know it, I'm sitting on this team with this big contract. And, so and I think that's tied to the perseverance and work of the man I am, and just believing that I'm not going to be the smartest guy in the room. I'm not going to be the guy that feels like he's got to always be buttoned up. I'm a fun guy, but I'm serious when it comes to my craft. And I know when to turn it on and off. And what I'm saying is just the fact that I'm going to be collaborative. I'm going to find a way to challenge people. I'm going to be strategic. I'm going to be all these things I need to be to help move a program or a department forward, because I want to be collaborative and I also want to learn from others. And so that's why I mentioned the perseverance and being competitive and really wanting to dig in. And I think the last thing that I guess I would mention is just as I think about my journey and I think about all the things that have come up for me, is just always trying to continue to be humble, just because again, these positions and opportunities that I've had, um, I don't take them lightly. I'm very excited to be a part of Nebraska, but I'm very humble, and I'm really thankful that somebody believed enough in me, that Troy believed enough in me, and others that are here to be able to work with them. I get the chance to work really closely with Coach Matt Rule, and we're already developing a relationship. And I'm really thankful to be around someone like him, because I'm going to learn from him too. It's not always about administrators, directing coaches. I think it's the other way around all the time. And I've had the chance to work with several that I've learned from. So those are some of the things that I would say when it comes to me and the person that I am, that are some core values for me that I stand on.
Well, it's kind of cool for me because you continue to mention Troy, and Troy has been on the podcast, and we had a really good discussion. And man, in this world that we live in, it's just been cool when I go back and sometimes I look over like these 80, 90 episodes. I'm using words like episodes. I'm a coach, right? But I mean, really, like, so I look back over these episodes, and it's just been cool, man, to hear the leaders as they speak. And then you referenced Troy. That was a phenomenal discussion that we had with him. In this role that you're in, you have an opportunity to influence, of course, student athletes, and like you just referred to, of course, influence coaches. But when you talk about young staff members, people who are in administration and they're younger and they are vibrant and they're ambitious,
That's right.
what words and what lessons and how do you influence and impact people who want to be like you, people who are walking the same path that you're walking, but they at mile marker 12 when you're at mile marker 20, they're at mile marker 5 and 3 when you're at mile marker 20. What lessons do you give to help those young administrators out?
Sure. So I think, there's one thing that I believe is important. This is a different generation, that younger group. Many of them, they want gratification right away. And I think sometimes it's tough because you've got to put the work in, right? And I've always tried to tell a lot of the younger staff or younger people that I work with, I think it's important to be really good at the job you have to know that there's going to be more opportunities for the jobs that you want. And just trying to stay focused on being really good at where you are, because it's just like, I use these football analogies because they just stick right now. You and I both know that guys are getting drafted at Division I, Division II, Division III. If you're good enough, people are going to find you. There are going to be people speaking in rooms that you're not in for you. If you're good and you've developed relationships, you've done it the right way, and you continue to be someone of integrity, and just continue to perfect your craft. And so I try to remind them that I took the path. I'll never forget my first job. I went back to Auburn. I'm an all SEC linebacker. I go back and I start graduate school. This would have been in 2004, and I'll never forget walking in a room, Van, and this lady, she said, "I need you to come in here with me. This is how we're gonna start today." And I go in this mail room, and she looks at me and she says, "Hey, this pot of coffee right here, I need you to make this pot of coffee every morning. And then I need you to spread all the mail out in this room. And I need you to hop in a university vehicle and go to 2 other buildings and get mail and drop off mail." And I just looked at her. And I thought, like, it was an aha moment. And there's always some ego involved. But at that point, I remembered my mom, who, again, one of the things that she always instilled in me is just work. And so I didn't think about it. I was not a coffee guy, but I made the best pot of coffee that anybody could imagine that they would have. And I didn't drink it, but it was important for me just to do the job. And I did that for probably 8 months. And there were days I had to do all of the mail because she wasn't in the office, a little older. So, it's not like I just was been given a chance to be a chief operating officer without really having to go through the work. And I try to remind young people of that all the time. So I only share that story, and I share it a lot with others to remember. And I think the way to cultivate and engage them is the last thing I'll say. They got to know that we really care and we're invested in them. So at South University, I'm at Ball State, I would start working with a young group of professionals while we would go to lunch monthly and just talk, so they know that someone from administration was invested in them. And I think I'll probably do something similar here in Nebraska, just so they know they've got somebody really interested in their path, their growth, because that's important. I mean, they're the future of the industry, and the industry is clearly changing. So,
yes, and the first thing you said is just alluding to that generation being a little bit different. In many ways, they are, right? But I find myself, now that I'm seasoned, right, probably a little bit more seasoned than you are. I'd rather say seasoned than old, but people used to say, my dad used to say that about my generation. Man, you guys are just different. Man, you guys are just different. Yes, in many ways they are, and we were.
Right.
But in a whole lot of ways, like you ended up with, in a whole lot of ways, they're the same. They want somebody to be interested in their development. People always say, man, they don't care what you know, they just want to know that you care, right? Well, I think that's across the board. That goes to anyone. And so kudos to you and your commitment to developing young people and doing it the right way. Right. It's easy for us to sit in our seats and say, well, you guys, y'all just don't get it. And I tell you what, back in my day, you know what I'm saying?
The
But
easy
man,
thing to say.
the easy thing to say. But they want you to lock in with them and care about what is important to them.
Right.
And my next question for you, and again, you've alluded to some great leaders in your life, but my next question is to that, you've had people pour into you. Most people who are blessed and highly favored, they understand it's not all about them, right?
That's right.
It's just a small piece that they just happen to be riding a bike. The path has been laid for them. My question to you is who are those leaders in your life, and what prominent lessons can you remember that those people that they gave you?
Yeah, so a great question. And it's so interesting that you asked this right now. It's timely, and you couldn't ask it at a better time. I was home, my family is still in Indiana before we make the move to Lincoln. And I was on a flight and I was reflecting of people that have been really instrumental in why I sit here today. And I go back to my time at Auburn. There were so many people, athletic director Jay Jacobs, my position coach, who you know the name, Joe Witt Sr., longtime football coach at Auburn. Kay Hargrave, who I worked for and gave me my first job in college athletics and continued to pour in me. Bernard Hill, longtime administrator, who has always been there for me to talk to and not tell me how great I am, but to really hold me accountable and challenge me. Troy Smith, my academic counselor, who got it started at Auburn for me and told my mother that he was going to take care and make sure I graduate. Well, I got 2 degrees. Joe Godfrey, who, when I left Auburn to go to the University of South Alabama, his son, Mark Godfrey, longtime basketball coach, Joe Godfrey held me by my hand as I was helping him start a Division I football program back in 2009 in South Alabama, and gave me the keys to the portion, allowing me to learn and grow while continuing to still be myself. Dr. Joel Erdman, who is currently the AD at South Alabama, he just enhanced my role and gave me a chance to sit in rooms that I probably wouldn't have the opportunity to that early in my career because he believed in my skill set. And I'm really thankful for him. Josh Whitman, the current AD at the University of Illinois, who I am so thankful for. I'm not sitting in this chair or my last seat at Washington or Ball State without Josh and his chief development officer, Howard Milton, who's a brother and a friend, who really challenged me from the standpoint of how I raise money, how I strategize, how I go next level. And I'm really thankful. Dave Benedict, the athletic director at UConn, has been a mainstay and connected me to Beth Getz when I got, the opportunity to work at Ball State. Connected us. Beth was unbelievable to me. Now the AD at Iowa, and I'm really grateful for her. And probably one of the best leaders I've ever had in the way she challenged me to be even more than I am. I'm just grateful. Mike Lynch, another athletic director, longtime administrator, who I'm really grateful for. President Jeffrey Mearns at Ball State University. Never had a president pour into me like that, and help be a mentor. Sean Frazier, longtime AD, who's currently at Northern Illinois. I mentioned Troy Dannon, and then a couple of younger guys that I've really leaned on that I'm thankful for and have been really instrumental in my career. Brian Blair, Randall Richmond, 2 guys that I have been able to count on with numerous phone calls. We're in a group chat together. And then another young man who I think I admire, who's at the University of Central Florida, and a deputy athletic director, guy by the name of Chris McFarland. So all these people have poured into me, and there's a lot more that I could mention, but I was making this list and it hit me the other day of all these people. And I said, I need to probably spend a moment just sending them a note and saying thank you. And so this is timely. I literally made this list like, I don't know, 2-3 days ago. So it's crazy that you just asked that question.
You know, to me, and you know, I have friends that they always will say, "Hey, man, you got a schedule or something? What do you got?" Because, man, I think it's so important that the
Right.
people we love, we let them know that we love them. The people that we're thankful for, we make sure that we make the rounds, right? We just loop back around.
Right.
It's so cool that when this guy he says it to me because he said when he asked me that question, he said, "Man, because I never do that. I never think to just text somebody, hey man, I'm just checking on you to make sure you're
Yeah.
okay." And
That's right.
sometimes what happens is in negative moments, like when we lose a friend or something happens, you know, then you start to think about, man, I got to make sure I stay connected. But I go the opposite way when I think
That's
like
right.
you did the other day when I think about how how blessed I am when I think about how many people have paved the road for me. When I think about how
Sure.
many people have had my back in situations, then man, those are the moments where I just start texting people. You
That's
know,
right.
I
That's
might
right.
not an old position coach,
That's right.
an old friend who we were roommates back in college, or you know, just people, man, to let them know that I'm thankful for their moment in my life, right? And so
Right.
I appreciate you for having that mindset. And yes, the question was right on time, like you
Literally made this list the other day just trying to reflect. That was
right.
it. It's a reflecting moment, is all it was.
So you spoke earlier about the landscape, this new landscape. It's
Yeah.
maybe confusing for some of us. For a lot of us, it's confusing. It's
Confusing for me, man, just so you know.
say what?
It's confusing for me too.
You know what, man? I think that we collectively, we along with the student athletes, along with the parents, along with the people who make the big decisions, man, we're gonna be okay, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's right.
people
That's
like
right.
you and people like myself and these student athletes who are out here doing what they do, right? I think we're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when we talk about this new landscape, and let's just choose NIL, this new
Yeah.
landscape of NIL,
Right.
just thinking about your leadership, I'm talking about your relationship with the student athletes and what
Right.
they're dealing with. What has this new landscape uh, done? Done? How has it affected you?
Yeah. I feel like, when I think about my time as a student athlete or even your own time, like we think about what we saw years ago. Everything was illegal, right? Like we couldn't do anything and there were things happening under the table anyway. We've basically legalized what was happening 20, 30, 40 years ago and going all the way back to what happened at SMU when they had guys on the payroll. And here we are in a place where, again, NIL itself has taken some different turns along with the collectives that people are working with right now on their respective campuses. Um, I don't know that it's affected me or impacted me. No, I shouldn't say it has impacted me. I don't know if it's affected me a ton in the way that I lead. What I have tried to do, and at the very start of this thing in July 1st, 2021, when this all happened, I remember putting something out on Twitter because there was some changes happening for certain, leagues and teams where seasons were getting canceled, and I was trying to be as positive and encouraging as I could. And so I'm going back to the beginning of all this when it started, and that was the thing that I tried to focus on. Probably didn't put a whole lot of time into for what it meant for me as much as I did for them because yeah, we do this and we're in this industry because of them, Van. But they were truly impacted at the start of this, and even now, when you think about where things are headed, not only tied to NIL, but what we know about revenue sharing and what that's going to mean across the landscape, which will be different for different schools and different leagues, um, different sports for that matter. And so, I've tried to not keep the focus off what means for me as much as I think of what it meant for them, and just trying to encourage, making sure they understand that there's going to have to be a lot of education and a communication for them, for our staff, as well. Again, this is unknown territory for us, but it's changing simply because of a settlement. Things are going to change quickly or over the next year, and then they're just going to continue to. There's going to be a domino effect for what happens over the next 5 to 10 years. So, without going too in depth, I'll just say that.
And I think, you're exactly right that, yeah, things will change. They'll change really quickly. And I think as long as, the people in our world as long as we continue to understand our responsibility is to the young people, and our responsibility is to do everything we can to educate them, then
That's right.
we'll be on the right path. My next
Yep.
question is talking about you being in those positions where you have the opportunity to put people on your bus, right? You got all these books, and I'm a leadership book reader, and we talk about the energy bus, and we talk about putting people on our bus and putting people. When you talk about the bus, there are other books out there that talk about putting people in the right seat, and understanding, what kind of people you want on your bus. So when you talk about hiring, when you talk about being in a position to hire people to be a part of your program, what are the things you look for, right? When you want to determine if a person is someone, you've identified a person, what are you looking for to know that, yes, this guy, this young lady is a fit for my team?
Yeah, great question. And I'm an energy guy. I love that back. I think for where our industry is right now, we need great energy. We need people that we know we can count on. We need people that we feel like are going to be able to put us in a situation where we can feed off them, they can feed off us. I think great energy is important. Again, I think the one thing that can't be compromised, I mentioned it earlier, is integrity. We need people that are people of integrity, just because, again, where our industry's headed, it is difficult right now. We need people that are honest and focused on the big picture as well. I love people who are collaborative, that are trying to think about the big picture and how we can work together and how we can build something. I want competitors. I think that's important. I think in our field, we even, not just on the field of competition, but we need people, in offices that are really competitive, because we are in a competitive industry. While we all have the opportunity to have success, I think it's important to have people that have an edge and that want to be competitive, and finding ways to get to the next level. I also feel like I want somebody that is a leader, that considers themselves like a leader. Even if they're not in a leadership position, there's going to come a time where they have to make decisions, and they've got to be able to think like they're in my shoes, or they're in the athletic director's shoes. And that's a forward way of thinking and being a leader, to know you got people around you, not necessarily that are like-minded, but in some ways know how to make decisions and can stand on why they made them. That is really important for me, as I think about building out a team. I don't want people I don't want yes people. I want people that are challenging me, that are challenging leadership, that are challenging each other. So those things are really important. I want somebody that is talented, but that may be dynamic in a way where they understand multiple things. They can work in marketing, but there's also some things that maybe they can provide for communication. I want people to be able to interact in a way where, through the collaboration, they learn from each other. They help each other. That's obviously really important for me as well, when I think about where I've been and the places that I've had the chance to work. I want people that are committed. I think it's hard in our industry right now, and I say that when I was somewhere for 10 weeks, and even though there was probably a reason for that, and now I'm here in Nebraska, with our industry and where things are headed, we need commitment from people. We need people to continue to be involved. And I know people are going to have opportunities, but we do need commitment. You know, I want commitment from people to know that they want to help build something and not looking for the next thing after a year, unless it's going to probably change their family dynamic or put them in a situation to reach their goal. But I think commitment is really important right now for where I sit, and again, places that I've been. So those are some of the things that are really important to me. I think we all want to surround ourselves with really smart people, which does not hurt, that are forward thinking and anticipatory, just know what's coming. You know, that could be that light of not necessarily a fortune teller, but they're certainly thinking ahead. So
That young Haven Fields, man, dude, you know, that was something about that dude, right? Back in the day. And he did things a little bit differently than this Haven Fields. And so my question to you is what is it that if you could talk to him, right, what would you tell that dude that could be really helpful for him, that would help him not have to go in so many muddy waters, not have to deal with so many things, that would help him be successful in ways he didn't even know if he had this secret that you had?
I thought about this, from the questions I saw, and so there is this thought for me that, patient, to be more patient, to give yourself more time for certain things, not just necessarily about your craft, but I think investing in yourself is probably the most important because it pays the best interest. So even as a younger man, there were some things that I wish I had invested in more that probably would have paid even more interest for me for where I sit today. And so I use those two things, the patience and investing more in me and things that I wish I had focused on even more, because it would have probably even paid even more interest for who I am as a man today. And so those are two things that I would certainly tell my younger self if I can go back, just because of what I've seen, in particular, I would say over the last 4 or 5 years, that resonates with me in a lot of ways. Like, man, this is something that I want to make sure I'm sharing with younger people. And you even mentioned it earlier, about the younger generation or younger staff members. The patience is so important, and finding ways to invest in you to really perfect your craft, but to know it's going to pay the best interest. So
Right.
those are the two things that I would say right now.
And my final question is a cool question for me, and the response has really been varied over the years, but especially as a former student athlete, man, there's nothing like game day, right? When you roll there out of that locker room, there's nothing like it. And then as a coach, right, my game day is not, sometimes it's not the game, right? Yeah, the game day is cool for me, but my game day is when I see, man, that student athlete, the one off the field, sometimes he just could not get it. And then all of a sudden I see that light bulb come off, right? And I see it, right? I see it change from a guy that I got to chase to make sure he goes to class and that he's where he's supposed to be and he's doing what he's supposed. It just changes from a guy that I can't get to lead himself, and all of a sudden he's getting a group in the circle. He's breaking down the group. My question to you is in this role that you sit in today, like that juice, that thing, right? What is your game day today? What is that thing that's like game day for you in this role that you sit in today?
Well, my day starts with me sucking wind because I'm trying to go for these jogs in the morning, and I'm not what I used to be, and I probably will never be again.
Right. But just don't let anybody know it.
Yeah, don't. Nobody knows it except all the folks watching this podcast. But what I would say is it starts. I try to set the tone in the morning. You get a devotional in. I try to go for a run, mostly every day. Sometimes I go every other day. If I can get 2 days or 3 days in a row, I mean, that's a big deal for me. But to set the tone, the thing that gets me really going when I get in the office is I like to do laps and just go say hello to people. It might be a situation where it's, not everybody in when I got it, when I'm in the office, but I just like to make laps and check in on people. I'm energized by being around people, Van. So it's the thing that really gets me going to know I got staff that I've connected with, or there's a quick story or a thing that I can share with them, in particular on a Monday when I get to ask them about their weekend and how their family's doing. Those kind of things are important for me and really get my day going. Other people help me set the tone just by spending a few moments with them, because I'm energized by hearing their stories, the things that are important to them, and just how things are going at that time, related to their work or their life. Those things are really important for me, and they certainly help set the tone to my days. And it's just a regular thing that I do, that I've always done. I like to think that I'm trying to help others. And you never know what kind of conversation you're going to have with someone and how that's going to impact their day, because you don't know what's coming on the back end of it. And they may be able to refer back to that conversation they had with you, and you try to compliment them and told them that don't ever change something, or keep doing what you're doing. And so those kind of things are important for me. So that helps really set the day.
Yeah, and I think, you mentioned earlier that you're a relationship person, man. And again, this is a relationship business, and it is competitive, and
Right.
it's all
Yeah.
those things, right?
Right.
But it is about relationships. And so I can appreciate that. And that's what I would remark about, from the day I met you, is you being that kind of person. And so I appreciate you for that. Man, I appreciate your time. We definitely thank you for being on. I say I'm talking about myself in this discussion with you, but then people who are going to have the opportunity to view this podcast. Again, I know that we're going to get some messages and some responses from people who got something out of it, and who it gave them, some kind of motivation to help them to continue to be who they aspire to be, which is, more like you. So I appreciate you for your time and for the way you operate.
Well, I really appreciate you for having me, Van, and for Pat for inviting me on. Kudos to you, and keep doing what you're doing. You're certainly making a difference in our industry, and and in the lives of young people. I know as a coach and a leader at Kansas State. So thank you.
Thank you.